Testing 1, 2, 3. Testing 1.
Patchwork out there on the asphalt. That's done. They'll get that wrapped up in the spring. The surface layer of asphalt. Oneida Northeast Asphalt will be in tomorrow. They're going to get that last bit of Anderson and the patch up on Davenport Street. They have a couple more street signs put in and some bits of restoration around driveways, and that one will be wrapped up for the season. Timber Drive, last week the bike path was paved, and they got the rest of the asphalt paving. All the concrete work and asphalt is done for the year. They'll be seeding that tomorrow or Wednesday. Once the seeding's done, barricades will come down and that project will be wrapped up for the year. All three of those, the final lift of asphalt pavement and the pavement marking will be done before HODAG next year. Any questions?
Does that include the rebuilding of Courtney Street too before HODAG?
Yes, yes, sir.
Cool. Thank you. Okay, moving on to 7B, which is the City of Rhinelander Utility Rate Study by Ellers.
We have Brian from Ellers on Zoom here. Brian, go ahead.
Hello, can you all hear me okay?
Yes.
Great. I am going to, would you like me to share my screen to walk through the presentation or just follow along in their packets?
Sharing a screen, I think, might be a pretty good idea.
Sure. It says I'm disabled right now, but
We're
let
going
me
to
know.
enable you.
There we go. Awesome. All right, can you see the screen?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Thank you all for having me tonight. I apologize I could not be there in person. However, my 3-year-old brought home some ugly stuff that has left us in a little bit of quarantine for the week. So I apologize that I can't be there in person. So the city engaged Ellers to look at the utilities, kind of just to do more of a longer range picture. Whenever we look at utilities, we like to make sure we're identifying their true nature in terms of how they operate. And so the utilities, unlike the governmental funds, while they similarly provide service, they tend to have way more of a capital intensive nature. What I mean by that is it costs a lot of money to get these assets in the ground and in the air, and a lot of money annually to maintain those assets in order to provide, safe drinking water 24/7, 365, and safe disposal of that water, as well as proper stormwater management. So in looking at all three utilities, we want to recognize that one, the capital intensive nature can come with a need to maintain ample cash to make sure that you can always be ready for a mix of debt and cash when you're investing in these capital assets. And as well as understanding that having some high maintenance expenses can cause some volatility for your year-over-year reported day-to-day operating expenditures, meaning one year we can have a main break, the next year we can have none. So you want to be able to have cash on hand in order to kind of control that volatility. You also want to make sure that you can make all of your debt service payments that you're already obligated to, but then it's important to look ahead to see if we have a lot of upcoming capital investment. How do we fund that appropriately, especially in a rising interest rate environment like we are now? So we were tasked to identify the fiscal sustainability of all three of the utilities. So one thing that I'll mention there is the way that we look at it and kind of respecting the capital intensive nature. We don't want to just look back 1 year and say, yep, that's going to be what it'll be in perpetuity. We want to look back at least 5 years into the past to identify, what have been those ebbs and flows in operating expenditures and capital expenditures. Identify some future projections, specifically as we talk about operating costs, and that's why you'll see O&M listed here. When we reference O&M, understand that's operating and maintenance expenditures. but also we need to fund depreciation, which is basically a formula to replace the assets in our system, and then any pilot payments, which is basically the utilities taxes to the general fund. Beyond that, as you know, the city's municipal advisor, we're able to appropriately identify, you know, taking your capital list and saying how much debt should we issue versus how much cash, how should the debt be structured, what sort of pledge and security should we put on the debt issuance, you know, for each project that's upcoming. So we did take a look at your capital improvements list for each utility and identify, you know, how are we funding these going into the future. And then finally, and most importantly, of course, is what's kind of that rate impact. So we look at a 10-year window for all three utilities in terms of how do we fund this capital improvement program and how do we maintain the fiscal sustainability of all three utilities. So I'm first going to tackle the water utility, and understand all three are going to look kind of the same. We did provide, you know, a full list of tables in terms of our analysis that's kind of in the portrait mode, if you will, to city staff. So if you'd like to kind of dive deeper into these, don't hesitate to stop me and ask questions. But for the most part, this presentation is geared to hit the highlights and explain kind of how the sausage is made when we're building your, you know, 10-year rate plan. So for the water rates, from a historical perspective in terms of implementation, it's important to realize that we're regulated. So there's a group of people that sit in an office in Madison and determine the rates for all utilities in the entire state. So they only provide certain windows of opportunity in order to raise rates. So these windows of opportunity for your utility are twofold. One's called a conventional rate case, which I'll shorthand to CRC. And then the other is called a simplified rate case, shorthand to SRC. Conventional rate case, think of as a full rate review. Basically, the PSC, or Public Service Commission, the regulators in Madison, will take that time to audit your utility, turn over every stone, figure out everything they ever can about everything you've ever done, every penny, and they'll do this full rate review. You provide an application to them, but then they go into an audit process. So the last time that this was completed for the utility was September 1st, 2015. Since then, we've had some changes. You know, you've invested capital, meaning you've added value based off of the projects that have been done within the city. That value has increased by 40%. That's seen in a lot of utilities, given the inflationary market that we've been in of late. So understand that while 40% seems high, it's probably because, one, the inflationary pressures, but two, quite frankly, when these systems were put in, they were put in a lot more so on the federal dollar, meaning that there was a lot of grants available back when the utilities were put in. So they're all put in at one time for most utilities. So you'll tend to see kind of a spike, or at least some ebbs and flows as it relates to capital spending. But certainly the inflationary market might have some impact on this number as well. Your O&M is about equal since those rates were set in terms of 2018 to 2022 average. So that's a good sign in terms of we haven't had, you know, specific maintenance requirements that have certainly spiked that consistently, which is good news. Sometimes maybe considered good luck, but good news at the end of the day. But the other thing is, this is good, you know, management of the utility, in my eyes, if you're able to kind of manage those O&M expenditures year over year, especially on a kind of a 5-year period. Depreciation, of course, is going to follow suit with added capital, as that's just a mathematical formula to say how, you know, based on the asset's life, this is how much annually you should be depositing in order to replace that asset in the future. And then this item is your last reported Public Service Commission from from your annual report what they call your rate of return. I'll explain this on the next slide, but essentially your rate of return was 2.24%, which is under their benchmark. So we'll explain this more on the next slide, but just understand you're kind of under their benchmark before we get to the next slide. Your other window of opportunity, as previously explained, that simplified rate case. It's kind of a, hey, are we eligible for an inflationary adjustment? PSC says yes. Okay, we get a 3% or a 4.5%, or last year the inflationary light bulb went on in Madison, and so this year it's an 8% adjustment for a simplified rate case. But whatever the PSC sets their inflationary rate to, as long as you're eligible, you can go get that. So the one thing I will say is you've completed one since the last conventional rate case in 2015 and 2021 for a 3% adjustment. And as a Class C utility, that's just what the PSC designates you based on customer class, but that also says whether or not you're eligible for a simplified based off of timing restrictions. But as a Class C, your restriction is you can do as many of these up to a cumulative amount of 40%. So basically is to say you get to do these up to 37% from this point on, if that makes sense, because you've already done one at 3%. You'd basically get, you know, whatever the rates are each time you would do one up to 37%, and you are eligible now. Any questions so far before I kind of go into the math? Okay, so I'm going to take a little deeper dive here. There are two ways to kind of answer the question, what should our utility rates be? First one is to think about it on a cash basis and say we're recovering all the cash costs of our system. So day-to-day O&M and your pilot payment, your debt service, and then what's referred to in the rate-making world as cash-funded capital. Think of that as your non-debt or other source financed expenditures for capital each year. So if you're buying a generator with cash or something like that, think about it that way. So you add up those three buckets, take out your non-rate revenues, and say this is the revenue that our system is required for each year. And then this was our actual reported revenues here, 1.9 million. We needed 1.79 million, so we were about 200,000 in a rate adequacy environment, meaning we had enough rate revenues to cover the costs of our system. So that's one way of looking at it. Over time, you've kind of been pretty rate adequate as it relates. The one item I will mention is 2023, it looks like you spent a little extra cash on projects. So that's why we'll see, you know, kind of this spike for this year. The one item I'll mention, however, is you'll note kind of our O&M has increased, and, you know, our debt service has increased as well. So absent the, you know, pretty volatile cash funded capital element, there's certainly some pressure on a cash basis. Maybe not this amount of pressure, but we still haven't added in new capital going into the future. So this is just kind of a point in time analysis year to year to say where we're at. The best and the worst news of that is the PSC doesn't care about it. They have, instead of using kind of the logical, what kind of cash expenditures do we have, and we should be making sure that our dollars out match our dollars in, they look at it differently. So they say the three cost buckets that every utility in the state should design their rates for are first, O&M and pilot, so that's the same as the cash basis. But the second cost bucket is depreciation. Again, that's that formula to basically say how much you should deposit to replace an asset. However, respect that it's just a formula and not actually cash out the door. And then the third one is this mythical beast called rate of return. What this is based off of is they say take the undepreciated value of your system, or what they call net investment rate base. And I've shorthanded that to NIRB. Just think of it, undepreciated value of the system, every utility in the state should earn a certain percentage on that value. So you take whatever the PSC sets the benchmark rate of return to, and then you'll get your dollar amount for cost bucket number 3. Add your 3 cost buckets up, subtract out the other revenues, we get our revenue requirement. So that said, basically the value of the system plus their rate of return benchmark has been such to garner a higher revenue requirement than the cash basis. That basically means is based on the size of your system, you have a low debt profile. That's usually seen as a good thing. The PSC math, however, doesn't always look at it that way, never looks at it that way, I should say, but it does provide issue in terms of understanding your only opportunity to raise rates is through this entity that looks at it this way. So I just want to present that material so you're kind of clear as to how the PSC would look at it. But the one thing that I'll mention is that, you've been basically rate inadequate by about $200,000. The 2021 simplified kind of helped that when you're, seeing those adjustments for a full year in 21, but then 22 and 23 again, going back to the cash basis where I kind of explained your O&M and pilot have increased. So we have had increased costs, so this number has gone up. This is all to say, if you were to go into a conventional rate case, this in each year, this is what they would have adjusted your rates by. So understand that this PSC math is relatively strict. It's also kind of time dependent. What I mean by that is, as you add, add capital year over year, this is going to be compounding unless the rate of return benchmark kind of goes down significantly. Meaning, as you add value to the system, you can expect the dollars expected to be required, returned, will be higher. So understand kind of how the PSC math works, but also the nature in which additional capital can kind of affect that PSC math. So what a lot of utilities will initially think is, oh yeah, that simplified rate adjustment will catch us up. Well, unfortunately, up until this year, they really haven't accounted for inflation. So you've added capital that's been appreciating much higher than your ability to actually increase rates. Now, the city hasn't increased rates since 2021, so you can't make that case. But the point being is the simplifieds don't always catch you up. So we just want to kind of set that stage. Any questions before I go on in terms of the PSC math and how water rates are determined? Okay. So rate performance is one thing. However, it's important to kind of look at other financial indicators. The one thing I'll identify here is we have healthy reserves, for the time being in terms of we're at about $3 million. Our recommendation for a utility of your size, keep about 6 months of O&M plus 100% of your next year's debt service in terms of total cash. That would be restricted and unrestricted. Keep all of that. That is the bars you're seeing here. So you're at about double the amount. So that'll be a good indicator in terms of when we start to look at your capital improvement plan. What can we do in terms of debt versus cash, trying to keep the debt lower, certainly in a rising interest rate environment. And then the other one to kind of point out here is this is basically a chart to look at the PSC math without rate of return. And the point for showing this is, let's imagine the rate of return was 0. You'd be pretty close here to having to do a rate adjustment just to recover depreciation. And that's usually when utilities start to see the big jumps when they go to the Public Service Commission for a conventional rate case. So we looked at the capital improvement plan, and the one thing that I'll just mention here is understand that this is, again, continued efforts to replace the system, make sure that the system is operating appropriately. So we do have a significant amount of capital here, about a little over 15 million. So understand that what we're showing for the rate adjustments is to go to the PSC math. The one reason for that is people can't unsee numbers, but when you wait longer, these adjustments will get bigger. The other thing I'll mention, just kind of on a cash basis, we're starting to feel the pressures of debt, as I've kind of mentioned. So this table works revenues from top to bottom, kind of revenues minus expenditures, how much is left for debt, and I'll kind of zoom in on 2023 here. How much is left for debt? And you can see in 2023, just kind of based off of budget and expected performance, we're like right at our debt amount, meaning we're barely covering our debt service. So we definitely need to do something, in terms of raising revenues. Our expenditures have kind of met our revenues at a point that now we're starting to limit ourselves in terms of available annual surplus for debt. So we would highly recommend that. You have, bonds outstanding that would have certain covenants that would require you to maintain a certain level of debt coverage. What we've shown here is kind of all-in debt coverage, meaning just kind of, we don't care the pledge of the debt, just can you pay your debt service? That answer for the near term is no, even showing a simplified adjustment of 8% in 2024. So what I would recognize this is kind of the minimum action rate adjustments shown, but the maximum result, meaning that we're showing what the PSC math would be. There could be ways to kind of ask the PSC for a lower rate of return temporarily to kind of lower this. As you can see, we don't need as much, we don't need as high of debt coverage here. Typically, we would recommend about 1.5, 1.6. Here, debt covenants are typically around 110 or 125. So 185 might be excessive. That's a result of kind of the PSC math again. But the point being is, as shown on the previous slide, even doing nothing, kind of the PSC math is showing kind of a compounding effect. So again, the longer we do nothing, the more scary this is going to get. So then we wanted to provide some perspective in terms of rate comparison. The one thing that I'll mention here is we took, about 6 counties around Oneida County, identified where your current rates are, and then where the 67 cumulative, so taking the first 2 adjustments, where that would kind of put you based off of everybody's current rates. So you go from below 50th percentile, to the top 5 here. That's also assuming nobody else does anything else. And so that's why we kind of include the effective date here to identify other utilities that are maybe behind the 8 ball that at some point will likely be doing, adjustments. The one thing that I'll mention too is we do happen to work for other utilities in the area and do know a few of these that will be going up as well. Before I move on, the other thing I'll mention is PFP, Public Fire Protection Charge, is shown for some and not all. So it is shown for the city, but it is not shown for some of these in between. So the reason for that is because not all utilities charge this on the water rate bill, but rather on the tax bill. And so it can be hard to kind of show a one-to-one comparison if it's on the tax bill, because not everybody's at the same assessed value and know, how much rate is going towards, how much PFP charge, is going towards your mill rate. So that can be one thing that kind of skews this, and I do think it skews it for the city is if everybody's PFP, public fire protection charge, was shown, a few of these would be a little higher. The other item that I'll mention is the regional comparison is not always my favorite. One clear example of that is your treatment expenses or your pumpage expenses may be different than your neighbors. We have a lot of examples of that near us where we have a pocket in one county near Milwaukee County that has radium in their source water, but everybody that gets it from the lake does not have that. So somebody 5 miles away has treatment expenses that are double, another utility that's, again, only about 5 miles away. So just respect that it's truly kind of not an apples to apples when we're just looking at regional comparison. So the other comparison we looked at is out of all Class C utilities. Be reminded that that's the number of customers based off of what the PSC, kind of classifies utilities as. So currently you're 110 out of 168. And then after that 67% jump, it would be about 19 out of 168. Again, there's a lot of utilities in there that haven't adjusted rates, and this is for 2 years from now. So our water recommendations, you're eligible for a simplified. Definitely do this at a minimum. This plan does identify the need for a conventional rate case in order to cover your capital costs. You're behind the PSC math, and there will be a larger increase the longer you wait. Without it, you will not be making debt coverage and also run the risk of running out of cash, all other things being equal. Certainly, the capital improvements list is always subject to change, but just understand all other things being equal, we definitely run some serious financial risks by not doing anything, and the conventional rate case will be needed at some point. We do recommend kind of a biennial rate review for the utility. A lot of communities find the value in understanding their PSC windows of opportunity and how they can navigate the PSC. So this is just kind of our findings for this year's rate review. Our engagement with the city just kind of identifies that you can move forward into other investigations based off of the windows of opportunity, meaning if you wanted to do that simplified, we can help the city complete that. If you wanted to do the full conventional, in 6 months from now, to be ready for the 2025 adjustment, we'll hold the price for that. So just kind of wanted to identify that. Any questions on water before we'll move forward? The other utilities, I promise, will be faster because we're not regulated.
Mr. Barnett?
So we're talking a significant rate increase. My concern with all of this is that we live in a high poverty area. I think as large of an increase as we're looking at, that's going to break a lot of people's wallets, and that concerns me greatly.
Sure. No, that's a great question on affordability, or a comment, excuse me, on affordability. The one thing I'll just mention is we did provide, and this is at the end of the presentation, but kind of an impact of the average residential customer based off of an average usage. So again, doesn't speak to everybody's usage, as that'll fluctuate based off of the numbers of individuals in the house and just kind of usage habits. But that said, the one important point that I'll make out is the percentage amount is not an explicit dollar amount, but it is near to it, meaning 54% for that second step, or the conventional rate adjustment is $40. As it relates, kind of taking all the adjustments, we did in our initial look always to affordability is what the American Water Works Association uses, which is a percentage of median household income, or MHI. You're right in terms of a low median household income, as reported against the state, which is about 58,000. Statewide average median household income. That said, the American Waterworks Association, not a huge fan of this kind of stat, but for the Midwest, they say by utility, the affordability kind of conversation in terms of adjusting a rate structure. So it's not to say whether something's affordable or unaffordable. They're just talking about changing the rate structure. So understand that, and don't write an angry letter to the American Waterworks Association. But their standard is kind of once each utility gets to about 2 to 4%, or a utility, gets to 2 to 4%. That's when we're starting to have are there rate decisions we can make in order to make rates affordable, whether that's volumetric charge tiering or something like that, changing, the fixed component and volumetric component so that the fixed is lower and the volumetric is higher. Understand that's a double-edged sword as it comes to the financial reliability of the system, but so they kind of use that 2 to 4% here for the water and sewer utility, and the stormwater utility added in. Over the life, we get to about 4%, which under the American Waterworks Association, they would say 6. Again, I'm not a huge fan of that. I'm just providing it for context. So the other item that I'll mention that I prefer and why we have it in our model is looking at taking that same average user and saying, based off of different income levels, what percentage does that mean, for a user at that income level? So the mountain in orange here is the percentage of population by each income level. So that's, for example, you have about 5% that are in the less than 10,000 household income, and then growing to about 8%, just over 8% that are at the 14,000, and then the utility bill is the bars. So basically saying, if on the same utility bills depicted on the previous page, what does that mean for each? So likely the one skewed factor here that may be in consideration would be, this is based off of household income and, percentage of the population by household income. Some of the lower income would be individual households, therefore maybe using less water or sewer. That may not be the case in every scenario. So I'm not making that assumption. I'm just saying, just understand that some of this could be averaged out. But this is something that we could look at. We helped the city of Oshkosh look at what we call the lifeline rate, and basically lowering the first tier of their water charge, volumetric charge, to say those that use less than 1,000 gallons in a month, they get basically free water. I think it was like $1.50, and then the next tier jumps up to kind of more the normal rates, if you will. So that's one way to kind of be price sensitive to low income users of the system. The other thing that I would just recommend is, at any point in time in which you're engaging your customers, whether that's a quarterly letter that you may send out, or an annual letter, or a customer, anytime you send out a customer bill, the PSC website does have an affordability and help center webpage, I should call it, that they provide links and phone number for customer assistance that not only includes low-income users but veterans, et cetera. So I would say, providing that website link could also be a valuable tool, irregardless if you're doing an adjustment.
Mr. Anderson?
How much does it cost to do a conventional rate case? And if it's approved, can it be phased in over a period of years, or does it have to take place right away?
Good questions. So the first one, in terms of how much does it cost, I would have to look, but I believe our total engagement was about $14,000 $4,000, which operates like stop and go because we don't always know, if we're going to go to the next phase. So this phase is about 4,000. So the remaining phases would be about, to complete the conventional rate case, would be about 10,000. The one thing and that's cost from our end. The one other thing I'll say is there's kind of a last phase that's if you want us to come up at the end of the PSC's decision to kind of present the final results, which we would come and present the rate application before you file it anyway. And then we would keep kind of staff informed along the way. And the PSC's final decision is going to be the PSC's final decision. This is all to say, usually communities don't select our last kind of meeting and they save $1,000, our last meeting and report, and they'll save $1,000 by just not doing that. So minimum $9,000 to complete the conventional rate case. The PSC will charge for their time to complete the rate case. I believe that's typically in the range of $2,500 or less. And then to answer your second question, the increases in truth, how a conventional rate case works is you apply for what they call a test year, which is basically to say up until this point in time, so right now we're in what they call 2024 test year, we would apply immediately today. We would say what assets are we adding in 23 and 24, that goes into our rate base, and that's how much we need to recoup. Where we can phase that in is if we had a construction project that lasted longer than 1 year. So let's say we had a project that was going on 24 and 25. We could break up the assets added in 24 and 25 and break that up. Now that does require it to be a major project in order for the PSC to allow that second step. And the major project would require construction authorization from the PSC. So you would have needed to file a docket for a certain construction project. Typically, like main replacements do not require that unless they're very, very long. I believe it's longer than 3 miles or something like that off the top of my head. But so that's a long way of answering. PSC has fund rules for every turn you make, but they typically do not allow you to phase that in. But we can make a request for a lower rate of return as a way to lower this number. And a lot of that would quite frankly be on, if we were involved in the rate case, would be on an affordability basis. So as to say, looking at the MHI against the state average, the PSC should have concerns here and allow for kind of a slower ramp up there. Now, again, this is kind of the maximum shown. We would still be wanting to, see where assets you've added, any additional debt you've taken out, and we'd be looking at it both ways to make sure that you're, financially solvent, of course. So it's not like we can eliminate the increase in full or anything like that, but you can make requests, and we've been successful. And we do about 10 rate cases to 13 rate cases a year. Any further questions on the water utility? Hearing none, I'll advance. So I'm not going to go as into detail on the sewer, on these charts, because we've kind of seen them now, but looking at it both ways, kind of are rates adequate or not? For the sewer utility, looking at it both ways, they are not. The sewer utility did do an adjustment in 21, which kind of full year looks to be, and also some less cash funded capital. We are seeing kind of that dip in 22. However, the one thing I'll note is, we're pretty negative pretty consistently here. The utility basis, not as important on the sewer side as we're not regulated. But I will say you'll typically see sewer utilities around about a 2% rate of return. This is all to say they basically solve it to make sure they can make their debt service payments. And it just so happens that a lot of these treatment facilities were built in the 80s, and so the debt profile is quite similar. Looking at the historical financial indicators, sewer utility is in a healthy cash position, same as water. The one thing that I'll mention again is right now this doesn't include any new debt service or new capital improvement program, but a similar concern, kind of looking at it just including depreciation, that there may be concerns of an aging system here, so we may have some upcoming capital, and we definitely do in terms of the capital list that we were provided. But as that depreciation kind of accrues and there is a growing expense, you're getting close to not recovering depreciation. And again, that's usually when all of a sudden the project hits and we're like, where did this come from in terms of a rate adjustment? So understand kind of the two financial metrics there. One good news, one about lukewarm news. So for the sewer utility being unregulated, again, this is a 10-year cash flow. We're looking to kind of get to about a 33% adjustment over time here into 2027, as kind of shown. The main reason for that is we do have, similar to the water utility, some significant capital improvements here as well, but most of it being kind of main replacements. It's likely because we're, if you're ripping up the road and doing water, you're likely going to be doing sewer as well. So the item here again is we're kind of using the cash basis only to solve this. So we've kind of solved the rate adjustments to get to about a 125 coverage over the 10 years. The adjustments shown beyond would be more inflationary in nature to keep up with our assumptions in increased O&M expenses. So we make an assumption that obviously O&M doesn't go down, but inflates little by little each year. So as to be seen what the future will hold in terms of, interest rates, inflationary costs on capital and other items. But in the near term, kind of looking to identify about a 33% by 2027 is my main message here. And if we're going to kind of try to pair this with water and stormwater, the one thing I would mention is obviously then sewer, might have the opportunity to go before water if we're going to do the simplified for water in 24 and then the 2025 full rate case, kind of trying to make sure that those are going up steadily instead of all at once, may be a benefit to the user, specifically those that are both water and sewer payers, which are likely the majority. The other thing I'll mention, and this kind of goes, I apologize, I didn't mention this for the water utility, but this goes for all of them, is we did solve all of these to allow for the maximum cash drop off. What I kind of mean there is going to that benchmark cash position, so as to say, we're not just jacking up rates to jack up rates. We're using a significant amount of cash to fund capital and balance the mix between debt and cash funded capital. So that'll help, of course, the debt profile. But again, if future projects warrant, so we're provided a 5-year list, and if you have future projects that come up that are pretty significant, you're not going to be able to handle a lot in terms of new debt service being at 125. So think of this as the minimum as well. So here, start to catch up on rates, build over time, as I kind of said. Minimum rates needed to cover your capital costs. Without it, we're worried about our debt coverage and running out of cash, just like the water utility. Sewer rates generally have the requirement from the DNR in your compliance maintenance annual report to do a biennial rate review. So we would recommend continued use of that, and you can consider this one your biennial rate review. But we'd recommend continuing that, of course, to comply with the DNR. And then if you do have any other rate making goals, you can engage in a full rate study. That's typically required if you're looking to add rates or are concerned with the equitability in rates. If you have high strength industrial users that are discharging above domestic strength BOD, suspended solids, nitrates, phosphorus, all the fun stuff that goes into the pipes. But if you have those special user agreements, typically those will require kind of a full cost of service study, is what we're talking about when we talk about a sewer rate study, in order to make sure those agreements are satisfied. So if you do have those components, you can move into phase 2 at your desire, but without it, you can kind of take these as an inflationary percentage across the board adjustment in order to update your rates. Questions on sewer? Hearing none, I'll move to storm. For the stormwater, same slide, different utility. We're kind of looking at the cash basis only. The one thing I'll say here is it looks like the stormwater utility started to take on some more projects in recent years, kind of starting in 21 through 23. So you'll start to see those fluctuations, but given that it's all due to projects, been able to cover your costs. So again, this has nothing to do with upcoming capital, but just kind of where you're at. Basically to say any rate adjustment wouldn't necessarily be a result of a catch-up, but more so of keeping up with the capital improvement program. In terms of reserves, actual versus target, given the stormwater utilities nature, we generally recommend not needing the full 6 months O&M expenditures, but 3 months and then still 100% of next year's debt. So a lower profile. This is all to say there was a recent rate adjustment in 21, I believe, for stormwater that's kind of helped build back up reserves. In 23, however, that is expected to dip down based off of the cash funded capital. In terms of the future projection, again, most of this is kind of built around going into the future. So the one thing I'll say here is based on kind of the value of the system, we're looking to kind of double that value based off of the capital list that we have within the next 5 years. This is probably a result of, the inflationary market that we're in terms of stormwater costs, but just kind of understand that, right, if we're kind of doubling the value of our system in terms of the costs to achieve our capital, we're likely going to have some significant increase, even using debt to kind of spread over those costs. So this plan was kind of built to try to delay that as much as possible while, using significant amounts of cash and then kind of solving for the long term again on that 125 kind of coverage basis to make sure that you have, that stable annual cash flow should you have ebbs and flows and maintenance expenses. So you do not want this debt coverage to be about 1. You don't want to be dollar for dollar on your debt. You want to be a little bit over so you can feel protected should you have ebbs and flows in your O&M expenses. So same methodology for sewer, structured a little bit around waiting for water and sewer to hit. One other reason is it can be because we didn't need to do much of a catch-up adjustment, if you will. So the one other thing that I'll say is while there's no kind of catch-up adjustment needed, there is this elephant in the room, seen or unseen. It is on the financial statement that the stormwater utility does owe it just kind of says due to other funds. And I'm sure staff can speak to this in more detail as necessary, but there's 2.7 million owed to other funds. So I believe a lot of the positive feelings in terms of the financial performance of the stormwater utility is likely a result of getting transfers in over time, or just maybe having capital projects not flow through the fund all the time. But it's getting reported as a liability in terms of a due to, regardless of how it's reported annually. So that's a huge concern, as likely that's caused a drain on other funds within the city, and we would recommend that this get paid off. Of course, the stormwater utility doesn't have $2.7 million to pay this off immediately. So we did add this in as existing debt. And so I'll just go back here. Without penalizing rates based off of the plan that we've built, is basically to pay this off, at least to start, at about $25,000 chunks, excuse me. The one thing I'll mention is likely this will be kind of a year-end transaction, meaning if you have a good year, you can pay more. If you have a bad year, you can pay less. Anything's better than not paying it at all. Same kind of recommendations though for storm beyond that point, so I won't kind of go through those again. In terms of the rate impact, we did kind of already go over this, so I won't spend too much time. The one thing I'll say, kind of on a quarterly basis, these are the impacts to each utility shown in the change over the prior year. In terms of the annual change, that's what's shown on the right-hand side of the screen here. On an annual basis, to an average residential user that uses all three utilities, their current bill would change by about $600 to fund your current capital improvement program and pay off all of your financial obligations. So, any other questions on the utilities?
So if I'm just, per your last slide, so that runs it out to what, 2028, 2029?
This goes out to 2032, but the one caveat I'll mention is the capital improvement program only goes to 2027.
So what you're saying is on average, if we would go forward, what would you recommend? The average utility homeowner would be paying $1.77 more per day at that 2027 mark. Because if I take the $646 divided by 365, you get about $1.77 more a day.
Over 10 years, yep. And then likely, right, there's maybe adjustments beyond the 2027 period that may need to be increased, but we do have increases beyond that point for all utilities, so it wouldn't be as significant.
Change. City Administrator, Mr. Patton.
Yeah, thank you. Brian, just want to make sure I've got this correct. So what you're recommending is for 2024, a simplified rate case raising 8% for the water, raising sewer 15%, and raising storm 5%. Is that correct? And that gets us on our way. And we do that simplified rate case while we're doing the full rate case. Is that correct?
Right. So the one caveat I'll say for the water, that's kind of like the minimum recommendation. You could do the conventional right away. It just wouldn't be broken up. You know, the rate adjustments wouldn't be as broken up. So from that, when we kind of ran our scenario it was about a 60% adjustment for that, kind of saying you wouldn't be adding the capital from 2025 into your rate base. So the cumulative like 67, it's kind of the 8% kind of breaks that up. So it's either 60 at once or an 8 and a 54. In kind of the PSC math, again, we would hope to argue for something less. But that's correct in terms of the adjustments for 24 would be an 8, a 15, and a 5 for storm.
Brian, how long does it take for a conventional rate case to go? How long does that take from the moment, if you guys are working on our behalf for this, from the moment we start to the moment it goes into effect? What are we looking at? Is it 6 to 8 months? I thought that's what we talked about earlier.
Yep. So it takes about 6 to 8 months. So if you're looking to implement for 1/1/25, we'd recommend kind of starting the application probably no later than February, so that we can get that filed by May for kind of the 1/1/25 implementation. But if it's filed in June or July, we've gotten those done in time as well. So I would say starting no later than kind of February, March, just giving the green light at minimum due to the time that it takes that process.
Thank you.
Any other questions by council? Thank you so much.
Thanks, Brian.
Okay. Thank you all. Have a good night.
Okay, moving on to number 8, proclamations, none apply at this time. Moving on to number 9, ordinances. This is 9A, second reading of City Ordinance 2023-8, amending 5-01-203A, historical preservation. I don't know if there's anything you'd like to add.
Not really. I mean, it's just a second reading as it was presented last time.
I'll make a motion to approve the second reading of the Rhinelander City Ordinance number 2023-8, amending chapter 5.01.20, parent 3, parent A, historic preservation.
Daniel, second.
Any discussion on the motion? Not seeing, clerk, please take the roll call.
Thomas Barnett,
Aye.
Leanne Felton,
Aye.
Carrie McLowski,
Aye.
Tom Kelly,
Aye.
Gerald Anderson,
Aye.
David Holt,
Aye.
Eileen Daniel,
Aye.
Stephen Jopek.
Aye.
Motion passes. Moving on to number 10, unfinished business, none apply. Moving on to 11A, new business. Approving common council meeting minutes from October 23rd.
Daniel, make a motion to approve the city council meeting minutes from October 23, 2023.
Hold second.
Any discussion on the motion? Not seeing. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those who abstain, oppose. Motion passes. Moving on to 11B, discuss and/or action for bills and claims of 2.2+ million.
Daniel, make a motion to approve the bills in the amount of $2,206,866.29.
Hold second.
Any discussion on the motion? Not seeing. Clerk, please take the roll call.
Carrie McLowski,
Aye.
David Holt,
Aye.
Eileen Daniel,
Aye.
Stephen Jopek,
Aye.
Gerald Anderson,
Aye.
Thomas Barnett,
Aye.
Leanne Felton,
Aye.
Tom Kelly.
Aye.
Motion passes. Moving on to 11C, discuss and/or action proposed resolution 2023-130. Refer to our city administrator.
Sure. So the Zion Lutheran Church requested that the fees be waived for their December 9, 2023 live nativity event, calculated by the clerk's office. That's $85 waived in fees.
Barnett, I'll make a motion to approve resolution 2023-130, approving the fee waiver request from Zion Lutheran Church for the December 9th, 2023 live nativity event.
Hold second.
Any discussion on the motion? Not seeing. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Abstain? Opposed? Motion passes. Moving on to 11D, discuss and/or approve the employee wage scale for 2024, which was presented with the budget baked in pretty much.
Yep, there's 3% cost of living increase.
Holt, I'll make a motion to approve the employee wage scale for fiscal year 2024.
Daniel, second.
Any discussion on the motion? Mr. Anderson?
I just had a little trouble relating the chart at the top with the actual listed wages for different positions, and then that chart shows step increases and things like that, but if you look at individual ones, it's hard to find them on the chart. I must be missing something, but I just wondered what that might be.
If you're looking at the non-union resolution, employment resolution,
Yes.
we're not listing employee names, we're listing positions. And the first column is listing what they're at in 23, which is on the 23 wage scale. And then for the 24, some are eligible for a step up from where their point was on the 23 wage scale to the next step, and then it has the cost of living increase of the 3% on the 24 scale. So it is kind of tricky to follow through. We have another working document that's confidential so that we can track where everybody is and when they're eligible for a step up.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? Not seeing. Clerk, please take the roll call.
Gerald Anderson,
Aye.
Stephen Jopek,
Aye.
Eileen Daniel,
Aye.
Carrie Mikulowski,
Aye.
Tom Kelly, Thomas Barnett,
Aye.
David Holt,
Aye.
Leanne Felton.
Motion passes. Moving on to 11E, discuss and/or action proposed resolution 2023-132. Mr. Patrick?
No,
what you got?
basically it's what Wendy was talking about. It's just the, something my understanding you pass every year. It's the non-union employment resolution. Basically shows what each position is being paid this year and what they're going to be paid next year.
Holt, I'll make a motion to approve Resolution 2023-132, approving the non-union employee resolution for fiscal year 2024.
Barnett, second.
Any discussion on the motion? Not seeing. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Those who abstain? Anyone who votes nay? No, motion passes. Moving on to 11F, discuss and/or action proposed resolution 2023-133 regarding our city budget and tax levy. Refer to our city administrator first.
In the resolution, you'll see that Wendy put together, did a great job again. You'll see general fund, you'll see all of our funds with revenues and expenditures. Looking for total revenues of $16,269,486 and expenditures of $16,429,200. I would tell you that earlier iterations of this budget, we had some numbers that were much further apart. And just impressed as my first year here with the city staff coming together and finding ways to do this. That doesn't happen everywhere. It really doesn't. This is my 5th community. That does not happen everywhere, but we had department heads that stepped in and did a really good job to figure this out. So kudos to Wendy, but also to the department heads for their dedication here.
Daniel, I'll make a motion to adopt the proposed fiscal year 2024 city budget and approve the tax levy for the city of Rhinelander.
Holt, second.
Any discussion on the motion? Not seeing. Clerk, please take the roll call.
Eileen Daniel,
Aye.
David Holt,
Aye.
Tom Kelly,
Aye.
Stephen Jopek,
Aye.
Thomas Barnett,
Aye.
Gerald Anderson,
Aye.
Leanne Felton, Carrie Mikulowski.
Aye.
Motion passes. Moving on to 11G, discuss and/or action proposed resolution 2023-134, work change order on Phillip Street. Mark, what you got?
I got on this change order, there's 3 items. To get at the water main on the west side of the bridge, we had to remove and reinstall some guardrail on the railroad line that's owned by the mill. We had to add a 24-inch hydrant extension to get it up to grade. The water main was at about 10 feet deep. We had to add a hydrant extension to get it above ground. And the last one you see on this is changes to anchors and bolts. We went through the bridge deck and the difficulty Musson had drilling into that deck and the changes that were made on that. These changes to the anchors and bolts are going from wedge anchors to epoxy anchors. Some of the materials they had to purchase, they had double purchases of. They returned everything they didn't use, and what you're seeing here for the $2,690 and change is the extra materials that they had on site dealing with those changes. So these 3 items total $5,067.07. I would also add, I would anticipate this is the last of the change orders for the Phillips Street project. The next pay request you're going to see in the spring should just be for the asphalt pavement.
Joe Peck, motion to approve resolution number 2023-134, approving change order number 3 from Town and Country Engineering for the Phillips Street Water Main Improvement Project in the amount of $5,067.07.
Daniel, second.
Any discussion on the motion? Not seeing, clerk, please take the roll call.
David Holt.
Aye.
Stephen Jopek.
Aye.
Eileen Daniel.
Aye.
Carrie Mikulowski.
Aye.
Gerald Anderson.
Aye.
Thomas Barnett.
Aye.
Tom Kelly.
Aye.
Leanne Felton.
Aye.
Motion passes. Moving on to 11H. Resolution 2023-135 regarding a pay application on Phillips Street Bridge.
This pay application includes the change order you just approved. There's asphalt paving, some base course, and finalizing some quantities. The total amount with retainage requested is $27,137.86. Again, this should be the last of the items on this change order, less the asphalt paving in the spring, and we recommend payment in this amount.
Joe Peck, motion to approve resolution number 2023-135, approving the application for payment number 3 from Musson Brothers Incorporated for work completed on the Phillips Street Water Main Improvement Project in the amount of $27,137.86.
Daniel, second.
Any discussion on the motion? Not seeing, clerk, please call the roll call.
Thomas Barnett.
Aye.
Leanne Felton.
Aye.
Carrie Mikulowski.
Aye.
Tom Kelly.
Aye.
Gerald Anderson.
Aye.
David Holt.
Aye.
Eileen Daniel.
Aye.
Stephen Jopek.
Aye.
Motion passes. Moving on to 11I, proposed resolution 2023-136. It's a work change order on Timber Drive. Mark.
This change order is for the changes required for the Farm and Fleet. There's a traffic impact analysis completed by Farm and Fleet prior to the construction of the building. In that impact analysis, there was turn lanes that need to be added, some turn arrows, additional widening of the road, and moving the sidewalk. We separated these out as these are all very specific to the Farm and Fleet traffic impact analysis. You'll see attached is RFI, which is a request for information that was sent to the contractor earlier this year. He came back with his prices, and those prices are what are incorporated on this change order, along with the actual quantities that were put in. The change order amount is for $59,356.31.
Holt, I'll make a motion to approve resolution 2023-136, approving work order number 4 for the Timber Drive Street and Utilities Improvement Project from Town and Country Engineering in the amount of $59,356.31.
Joe Peck, second.
Any discussion on the motion? Not seeing, clerk, please take the roll call.
Carrie Mikulowski.
Aye.
David Holt.
Aye.
Eileen Daniel.
Aye.
Stephen Jopek.
Aye.
Gerald Anderson.
Aye.
Thomas Barnett.
Aye.
Leanne Felton.
Aye.
Tom Kelly.
Aye.
Motion passes. Moving on to 11J, proposed resolution 2023-137 for a work change order on Timber Drive. Mark?
I added the second change order. Like I said, I wanted to keep the farm fleet change order separate. This one is for a 36-inch hydrant extension. This is for the platted development south of Timber Drive. There's an entrance going in there. We stubbed sewer and water into that site, and we had to add a hydrant extension to match the grade there. And this change order is for $2,377.69.
Joe Peck motion to approve resolution number 2023-137, approving work change order number 5 for the Timber Drive Street and Utility Improvements Project from Town and Country Engineering in the amount of $2,377.69.
Mikulowski, second.
Any discussion on the motion? I'm not seeing. Clerk, please take the roll call.
Gerald Anderson.
Aye.
Stephen Joe Peck.
Aye.
Eileen Daniel.
Aye.
Carrie Mikulowski.
Aye.
Tom Kelly.
Aye.
Thomas Barnett.
Aye.
David Holt.
Aye.
Leanne Felton.
Motion passes. Moving on to 11K, proposed resolution 2023-138 regarding a pay app for Musson Brothers for Timber Drive. Mark?
This pay request has a little bit of everything. There's some sewer, some water, some storm sewer, concrete, curb and gutter, flat work, and paving on this. I anticipate there's going to be another pay request to come this year, finalizing quantities. But for this pay request with all the items, and you can see in detail in the pay request where those went, the requested amount withholding 5% retainage is $583,091.05, and we recommend payment in that amount.
Joe Peck motion to approve resolution number 2023-138, approving contractor's application for payment number 6 from Musson Brothers Incorporated for work on the Timber Drive Improvements Project in the amount of $583,091.05.
Daniel, second.
Any discussion on the motion? Not seeing. Clerk, please take the roll call.
Leanne Felton.
Aye.
Tom Kelly. Eileen Daniel.
Aye.
Thomas Barnett.
Aye.
Gerald Anderson.
Aye.
Carrie Mikulowski.
Aye.
Stephen Joe Peck.
Aye.
David Holt.
Aye.
Motion passes. Moving on to 11L, proposed resolution 2023-139 for a work change order for Oneida. Mark?
There are several items on this change order. The first is for water service on Davenport. The reason this is added to a change order is because it was outside the project limits. Contractor had additional removals to do on actual Davenport Street. So we ran this as a change order to incorporate all the additional work. They had to remove buried sidewalk on Oneida Avenue on just north of Lincoln Street by the chiropractor. When we're doing the excavation of subgrade, the contractor found another sidewalk about 2 feet below the sidewalk that was there. So we removed that sidewalk, and that took some additional work. Saw cut on inlet 19.4. Again, this is just, we had to move that inlet around a radius to avoid utilities. So this is modifying that inlet to fix the inlet lead. Installing new conduit and wiring for Oneida and Davenport Street. This is wiring for lighting that went to the county building. So that was not located by any utility company. The contractor hit it. So they had to replace this. Is for wiring and conduit. Installed concrete steps. These were steps that were necessary to blend into existing grade and existing walkways going to a couple different houses. We did not have a bid item for concrete steps. We did this as a change order. That's what you're seeing here. Remove a tree from 130 East King. This tree was actually on private property. We had talked to the homeowner early in the project. What we typically do, the city can't remove the trees if they're on private property, but if we damage the roots, we like to take those trees down. That just makes a little liability for the city if we damage a tree and it were to fall on the house in the future. That resident did not want that tree taken down at that time once we went through the sidewalk and the excavation, and she recognized the actual damage to the roots and the possibility of that tree falling. She requested that we pull that tree out, which was to everybody's benefit. This cost is the remobilization and the removal of that tree for fully service. The last item is water main parts reimbursement If you'll all recall, we bid out the water main materials separately from the actual construction. During construction, the contractor needed additional parts that weren't bid out. That contractor purchased these parts, and this is a reimbursement for those parts to the contractor. The total amount of this this change order is $26,761.49.
Jopak motion to approve resolution number 2023-139, approving change order number 4 to the contract with Musson Brothers Incorporated for the 2023 Oneida Avenue Area Utility Street Improvements Project in the amount of $26,761.49.
Hold second.
Any discussion on Mr. Barnett?
Yeah, two questions. Why would someone put another sidewalk over a sidewalk?
I don't know why. We wouldn't do it. That's why we took it out.
Right, yeah. Second question is, are we replacing the tree that got yanked out that she didn't want removed?
As far as I know, she hasn't indicated that she wants to replace it. If we did, I don't know, that would be at the city's expense.
Okay, all right.
She has actually volunteered to pay a portion of this cost also.
Any other discussion? Not seeing. Clerk, please take the roll call.
Eileen Daniel,
Aye.
David Holt,
Aye.
Tom Kelly,
Aye.
Stephen Jopak,
Aye.
Thomas Barnett,
Aye.
Gerald Anderson,
Aye.
Leanne Felton,
Aye.
Kiri Mikulowski.
Aye.
Motion passes. Moving on to 11M. Discuss and/or action proposed resolution 2023-140 application pay app for Oneida Street.
The bulk of this pay request is for grading work, base course addition, concrete curb and gutter flat work, paving, and topsoil restoration on all the streets. The total of this comes to, with retainage held, $960,077.43, and we recommend payment in that amount.
Jopak motion to approve resolution number 2023-140, approving contractor's application payment for payment number 6 from Musson Brothers Incorporated for work on the Oneida Avenue Utility and Streets Improvements Project in the amount of $960,077.43.
Hold second.
Any discussion on the motion? Not seeing. Clerk, please take the roll call.
David Holt,
Aye.
Stephen Jopak,
Aye.
Eileen Daniel,
Aye.
Kiri Mikulowski,
Aye.
Gerald Anderson,
Aye.
Thomas Barnett,
Aye.
Tom Kelly,
Aye.
Leanne Felton.
Aye.
Motion passes. Moving on to 11N. Discuss proposed resolution 2023-141 regarding proposed IT improvements for the police department and refer to our city administrator.
And I was hoping Mark would take this one too. No, seeing as you're up there for most of them. So what this is, Tara is here to speak about this, but this is a continuation of the IT consolidation project. This was approved in August meeting, but Tara, go ahead.
Basically, it's just the consolidation of the IT, purchase of 7 PCs that are greatly needed, a purchase of a higher-end computer with some AI technology for redactions of video, the immense work that it was going to take to migrate all of them, and an EDR system for CJIS policy that's required. So
Barnett, I make a motion to approve the 2023-141, the proposal from Technology Management for IT improvements at the Rhinelander Police Department for a total cost of $59,874.41.
Hold second.
Any discussion on the motion? Not seeing. Clerk, please take the roll call.
Thomas Barnett,
Aye.
Leanne Felton,
Aye.
Kiri Mikulowski,
Aye.
Tom Kelly,
Aye.
Gerald Anderson,
Aye.
David Holt,
Aye.
Eileen Daniel,
aye.
Stephen Jopak.
Aye.
Motion passes. Moving on to 11O. Discuss and/or action proposed resolution 2023-142 regarding turnout gear for the fire department. I don't know if, Brian, if you want to speak to this or...
Is that Brian? I thought it was Tom Selleck.
It's Tom Kelly, sir. We our gear lasts 10 years. We're at the 10-year mark for all of our personnel, to include one new one coming in and then a couple leaving. So this will be 18 sets of the people that we have right now who have been fitted for gear or will be fitted for gear. We'd like to get this ordered. It's about 8 to 12 weeks out.
Daniel, make a motion to approve Resolution 2023-142, approving the proposal from Conway Shield for the purchase of turnout gear for the Rhinelander Fire Department for a total cost of $58,310.75.
Hold second.
Any discussion on the motion? Not seeing. Clerk, please take the roll call.
Gary McLowski.
Aye.
David Holt.
Aye.
Eileen Daniel.
Aye.
Stephen Jopek.
Aye.
Gerald Anderson.
Aye.
Thomas Barnett.
Aye.
Leanne Felton.
Aye.
Tom Kelly.
Okay, motion passes. Moving on to 11P, proposed resolution 2023-143 regarding fire department furniture. Brian?
So this comes from the borrowing as well. We were able to get 4 Mustang suits that were donated to us from the Lions Club and Seventh-day Adventist Church, which we built into the borrowing as part of our PPE buying. So moving that back, not getting the extra 2 firefighters this year kind of draws down that a little bit. So we have some wiggle room in that $100,000 that we requested in borrowing. We'd like to get some mattresses and recliners for our firefighters, as our mattresses, they typically run about lifespan about 10 years. We got some cheaper ones that were at 8 years and they've shown like they're 15 years old. Same with our recliners. We got about 4 recliners where the backs are falling off of them right now. So obviously the rest and recuperation is of the utmost important for the firefighters. So I appreciate it.
Barnett, I make a motion to approve resolution 2023-144, approving the proposal from Furniture and Appliance Mart for the purchase of mattresses for the Rhinelander Fire Department for a cost not to exceed $3,304. I know I just skipped over one as well. Can I add that in? I also want to make a motion to approve resolution 2023-143, approving 142, approving the proposal from, I'm off, man. All right, I was right. 143, sorry, Austin. Approving the proposal from Slumberland Furniture to purchase chairs for the Rhinelander Fire Department for a cost not to exceed $6,929.93. Got all that, Austin?
So just to be clear, he's making a motion to approve resolution 2023-143, 2023-144.
Yes.
Hold second.
Any discussion on the motion? Not seeing. Clerk, please take the roll call.
Gerald Anderson.
Aye.
Stephen Jopek.
Aye.
Eileen Daniel.
Aye.
Carrie Mikulowski.
Aye.
Tom Kelly.
Aye.
Thomas Barnett.
Aye.
David Holt.
Aye.
Leanne Felton.
Aye.
Motion passes. Moving on to 11R, discuss and/or action proposed resolution 2023-145, mobile data computer stuff for police department. Refer to our IT person.
Again, squad cars need new computers. They're expensive. 2 other quotes came in at $21,000. This was the lowest one. That would put all our cars with new MDCs in the last year.
Daniel, I'll make a motion to approve proposed resolution 2023-145, approving the proposal from TKK Electronics for the purchase of 4 mobile data computers, MDCs, for the Rhinelander Police Department for a cost not to exceed $19,862.
Hold second.
Any discussion on the motion? Mr. Anderson?
Yeah, I just wondered, is this about the end of all these improvements now, or do we have more to come?
Probably have one more, unless I can find it in the minutes that we did this one previously. I'm not sure if we did or not, but we have some more equipment with the big city that everybody will be on at the end for some extra equipment. That's been also previously approved on the borrowing.
Okay, not seeing any other discussion. Clerk, please take the roll call.
Eileen Daniel.
Aye.
David Holt.
Aye.
Tom Kelly.
Aye.
Stephen Jopek.
Aye.
Thomas Barnett.
Aye.
Gerald Anderson.
Aye.
Leanne Felton.
Aye.
Carrie Mikulowski.
Aye.
Motion passes. Moving on to 11S, discuss and/or action of virtual meeting policy second draft. Refer to our city administrator, Mr. Pat.
Yeah, well, thank you. I just like to say, Member Joe Peck has the smoothest eye in the business. That is very radio friendly. Basically, what you had directed me at the last meeting was to have make it so that in this policy, so that council members attending virtually would not be allowed to attend any closed session portion of that meeting. Basically what I've done.
Joe Peck, motion to, do we need a motion to approve this?
Yes.
Or are we just kind of looking at it for now?
No, if you want to discuss it, discuss it. If you'd like to pass it,
It's been a long day, so my brain's kind
I know.
Mr. Barnett?
Can we discuss it first, or?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Motion in a second, then discuss.
Did
Motion
Mr.
to approve. I'll make a motion to approve the virtual meeting policy second draft.
Barnett second?
Okay, motion second. Any discussion on the motion?
As well as in this policy, we are leaving in the fact that the mayor has the authority to cut off communication if it's deemed inefficient for the meeting. All that is in there as well?
I believe so, yes.
Okay, I just want to make that clear.
Yep.
Any other discussion? Not seeing. Clerk, please take the roll call.
David Holt,
Aye.
Stephen Jopek,
Aye.
Eileen Daniel,
Aye.
Carrie McLowski,
Aye.
Gerald Anderson,
Aye.
Thomas Barnett,
Aye.
Tom Kelly,
Aye.
Leanne Felton.
Aye.
Motion passes. Moving on to 12, monthly reports.
Hold, I'll make a motion to accept the monthly reports as presented.
Daniel second.
Any discussion on the monthly reports? Not seeing. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstain? Motion passes. Moving on to 13, communications. I refer to our city administrator, Mr. Pat.
Yeah, I received a communication from the Northwoods Smoke-Free Coalition, just kind of outlining things that can be done to keep smoke-free. They talked about e-cigarettes, vaping in there quite a bit. So I'd like to include the communications such as this in the packet, so you should be seeing these from here on out. No action needs to be taken, just letting you know.
Okay. Moving on to number 14, future agenda items. Anything anyone would like to add? Mr. Anderson? Oh,
Well, I think we've been, did you follow me?
yes.
I think we've been aware that there's a need to make revisions to our code of ordinances to remove some inconsistencies and things like that. And I'd like to start off by putting something on the agenda to establish whether we are going to call it Plan Commission or Planning Commission. There's various versions in there, and I think we ought to just say it's one or the other.
Okay. Anything else anyone would like to add to the next agenda? Okay, not seeing. Our next regular meeting is November 27th at 6 p.m. It is 7:33. Meeting adjourned.